An F-16 destroyed 7 aerial targets in a single sortie over Ukraine. But the number is not the story. That mission revealed exactly why Ukraine had waited 2 years for this American fighter. What it could see that older aircraft struggled to find. How it hunted threats that slipped through the defenses below. And what happened when even the Viper was pushed beyond its limit. Before the F-16 arrived, Ukraine fought the air war with Soviet-era MiG-29s. Those jets could still fight, but their older radars, weapons, and Soviet-era architecture left pilots with fewer options against the kind of war Russia was waging by 2025. Not precision strikes, but floods. Hundreds of cheap drones and cruise missiles in a single night mixed with decoys to waste interceptors and overwhelm the defense. The math was brutal. A Shahed drone cost tens of thousands of dollars. The Interceptor missile that kills it can cost 100 times more. Send enough and the defender bleeds dry before dawn. Ground-based air defense could catch some, but radar stations were overloaded. Interceptor stocks dwindled, and when the net on the ground began to tear, whatever slipped through kept flying toward apartment blocks and power stations. On the night of June 29, 2025, Russia tested that math like never before. 537 aerial targets, the largest single assault of the entire war. 477 Shahed drones and decoys, alongside dozens of cruise, ballistic, and hypersonic missiles. Ground-based batteries were stretched thin. Only one layer of defense remained: fighter jets. Among them, an F-16 with a pilot named Maksym Ustymenko. Born in 1993, a lieutenant colonel, a first-class pilot. What happened next is confirmed in outcome by Ukraine's Air Force. He destroyed 7 aerial targets before his aircraft sustained critical damage. We do not know which weapon destroyed which target or in what order, but the F-16 gave him several ways to fight, and a mission like his may have unfolded something like this. The scramble alarm sounds. Somewhere on a Ukrainian airfield, Ustymenko runs toward his jet in the dark. No lights, no wasted noise. The window to stop an inbound missile from reaching the ground can be measured in seconds, and it begins the moment the wheels leave the runway. A light pull on the side stick, and the F-16 leaps off the tarmac, blood draining from his head as the climb presses him into the reclined seat. The side stick does not steer the aircraft through cables. It sends electrical commands to a flight control computer, which moves the F-16 almost as fast as thought. Above him, a single bubble canopy opens the sky in nearly every direction. On a night when threats arrive from all quadrants, that view is a tactical edge no instrument can replace. Through that canopy, the horizon is not dark. It flickers. Explosions and interceptions bloom and die along it. Inside the oxygen mask, his own breathing echoes back to him, slow and steady, the only sound he controls tonight. On the radar screen, the world becomes a field of bright dots, each one a question the F-16 systems help answer. Warhead or decoy? Heading where? Can he reach it in time? There is no time to be certain. There is only time to choose. The first target appears, a contact heading toward a city, low and slow. This is the moment the F-16's eyes matter most. Its pulse Doppler radar looks down at the Earth and pulls a low-flying cruise missile out of the ground clutter that confuses older systems. The contact hugs the terrain, weaving through valleys that would swallow an older radar's return. The Viper's radar holds it clean. He turns to intercept, establishes a firing solution. Lock. Fire. Far away, a dot vanishes from the screen. Somewhere below, a life is saved without anyone knowing. The second target appears before the first one dies. Here is where the AIM-120 AMRAAM changes the fight. An active radar beyond visual range missile. Once fired, its own seeker guides it through the final phase. The pilot does not need to hold a radar lock on the target until impact, the way many of the older missiles available to Ukraine required. He can turn, reposition, and set up the next shot while the first missile is still flying. Fire and forget. That freedom is the difference between engaging two threats in sequence and engaging them almost at once. In a sky with hundreds of contacts, almost at once is the only speed that matters. The third, each engagement follows the same cold cycle. Detect, sort, lock, fire, reposition. This is not the combat of movies. No rolls, no dramatic climbs. This is the kind of fight the F-16 was designed for. Methodical, precise, repeatable. Then a voice on the radio calls out a contact Ustymenko has not seen on his own screen. That target did not come from his own radar. It came from a wider network of ground radars, command centers, and other aircraft sharing one picture. This is the advantage Link 16 buys. The F-16 does not have to fight with only its own eyes. Ukraine's Soviet-era jets had nothing comparable. He turns, locks, fires. A dot the ground network saw first, and he finished. 4 down. Think about what that means on the ground below. A family huddles in a basement, listening to jet engines slicing through the night, unable to tell friend from enemy. They do not know that the only thing standing between them and a cruise missile is a single exhausted man in an American jet, thousands of meters above their heads. Then a slower target drifts across his path. A Shahed drone, low and steady. A missile would be overkill against a target this cheap, and missiles are the currency he cannot waste tonight. He conserves missiles and closes in with the cannon instead. The F-16 carries the M61 Vulcan, a 6-barrel rotary cannon firing 100 rounds per second. Dangerous work, flying near something packed with explosives. He closes the distance. The Shahed grows in the canopy from a black speck into a shape. A short burst, and the drone breaks apart in a fireball close enough to light up the cockpit. One target destroyed without spending a missile worth more than most cars. Economy matters when the enemy sends hundreds. 5, 6. Weapons spent. Options narrowing. Every trigger pull leaves him with one less answer, while every second wasted on a decoy lets a real warhead fly closer to the ground. This is where the F-16 reaches its limit. It carries only so many weapons, and its radar cannot watch the entire sky. The pilot must choose which threat to chase and which to let pass. Because the greatest danger is not the target on the screen, it is the one coming from a blind angle, a fragment, a piece of debris, or a Shahed he never saw. 6 targets were gone. The F-16 was still airborne, but around it, the night had become a maze of debris and crossing flight paths. Then the 7th target went down, and something went wrong. No one knows what happened inside the cockpit after the 7th intercept. The F-16 was critically damaged and began falling. Whether it had been struck, hit by debris, or suffered a mechanical failure has never been made public. What is known is what Ustymenko did next. Below him was a populated area. With altitude disappearing and the aircraft slipping away from his control, he kept fighting the jet away from the houses. Every second bought for the people beneath him cost him one of his own. And by the time the F-16 cleared the rooftops, there may have been no safe way left to escape. A crippled fighter falling toward a city does not offer clean choices. It offers physics and a list of options that shrinks with every meter of altitude lost. By the time the jet cleared the neighborhood, the window to eject had closed for good. Maksym Ustymenko died with his F-16. Born in 1993. 7 aerial targets destroyed in a single sortie, and one final act that no radar, no missile, no software update could have performed. That decision lived in the pilot, not in the machine. The F-16 proved its value that night, but not invincibility. No single fighter could have absorbed 537 threats. Its job was never to hold the entire sky alone. Its job was to close the gaps, extend the defense, and stop what would otherwise get through. More than 4,600 built, flown by dozens of air forces worldwide. Parts, expertise, and training infrastructure already exist across the Western Alliance. That scale made the F-16 one of the few Western fighters Ukraine could realistically receive and sustain during an ongoing war. The F-16's advantage was never one radar, missile, or cannon. It was the system built around the aircraft. A pilot could train in one country, receive instruction from another, fly an airframe maintained with parts supplied by several others, and still operate within the doctrine. That mattered to Ukraine as much as speed or maneuverability. Every sortie depended on technicians who had learned procedures, ground crews working under threat of attack, and a supply chain stretching across Europe. The jet that rose into the night was American by design, but international in everything required to keep it flying. That is why losing one F-16 meant more than losing metal. It meant losing training, maintenance hours, spare parts, and a pilot whose experience could not be replaced on a factory line. The aircraft could be rebuilt. The ecosystem around it could be expanded, but the man in the cockpit could not. This jet was born in the 1970s to counter Soviet air power. Half a century later, it flew over Ukraine fighting Russian weapons in the skies it was built to contest. America built the machine, but the thing that mattered most in the final seconds existed in no schematic.
Ustymenko was the third Ukrainian pilot known to have died in an F-16 loss since the jets arrived in 2024. The cruel arithmetic has not changed. One side floods the sky with drones that cost less than a used car. The other defends with pilots who take a decade to train, flying jets so precious that losing one leaves a hole in the sky. Ukraine awarded Ustymenko the title of Hero of Ukraine with the Order of the Gold Star on the same day he fell. He was buried in Kiev, where family, fellow pilots, and citizens gathered to say goodbye. The skies he died to protect have rarely been quiet since. If one F-16 and one pilot held back 7 threats on a night of 537, the question writes itself. How many more jets, how many more pilots, and how many more nights like this before the sky holds? Leave your answer below. If this video changed the way you see the air war, share it. Subscribe to follow the story as it unfolds.